The story tonight is about God falling in love with somebody that didn't fall in love with him. We find ourselves confronted with this as we walk through lives. We love people who don't love us back. So God says, I want to get a message across to this person that I really love. How am I going to do that? He calls on a man called the prophet. Prophet is people in the Old Testament who God gave an ability to hear his voice at unique times and in unique ways. And Hosea was such a man that was called upon by God to hear the things God had to say for his people. So God called upon Hosea and he said, I got a job for you to do. What is it? He said, I want you to go marry a girl that's among the harlots, the prostitutes. Well, God, I'm a holy man. I keep your law. I don't do things like that. No, you're going to marry her. And you're going to have children. She's going to be unfaithful, and her kids are going to be just like her. Well, that sounds like a pretty bad deal, don't it? Why would God do such a thing? Because God is wanting his nation of people to know he really loves them, but they don't get the message. You may have found yourself sometime in a particular scenario or a relationship. You're trying to get that person who you care so much about to care equally about you as much, and you find yourself frustrated, kind of being badgered or being beat up, and you think, how can I get this to happen for us? I fell in love with Sister Kindrix when I was in the 9th grade. But she didn't fall in love with me. Not then. I fell in love with her. Sitting in my 9th grade English class, teacher called on her for a question, and I'm telling you, at that moment, something came over me, and it's never turned me loose, thank God. I fell in love with that girl. I didn't care how old she was. I cared nothing about what her family was. I just knew I had to know who that person was. I fell in love with her. But she didn't love me back. Where I grew up, our fruit got mature fast. My tomato turned red. I was, So my buddy says, I'll help you. You will? Oh, yeah. I said, all right. He said, just leave it to me. And you know what? It wasn't long. That girl I fell in love with started asking questions about me. Next thing I know, I could walk her to study hall. We'd go to dinner, though we didn't eat. You know how it was at school. We were school food. We just sat there. What I didn't know was he told a little white lie. Small one. Small one. He told her I was 16 and not 14. They knew Hosea was a holy man. And when he married the girl from the red light district, flags went up everywhere. Fireworks went off the wrong way. And as it did, why are you doing this? Because God told me to. They're watching it. And she kept on being unfaithful. And she birthed children to Hosea. And the children acted just like the mother, harlotry. But, doing things they shouldn't do. And no matter how hard Hosea tried, they would not conform. They would not come in line. And all the time, God is saying, I want to let my wife-to-be know I love her. So God takes Hosea. He marries her. All these things take place. And soon she has too much of the domicile life. It's boring. I like to dance and party. And she took off. Well, here's the thing about Hosea. He fell in love with that girl. He loved her. and she wouldn't love him back. God said to Hosea, I love Israel, and Israel don't love me back. Before you can talk for me, prophet, you're going to feel what I feel. If you've ever loved somebody and they didn't love you back, you might have an indication about how God felt. So, he's moping around the house. He's going through a hard time. It's dark everywhere he turns. God comes to the prophet and he says, hey, I know where that girl's at and I want you to go get her. She is fixing to be sold on the auction block as a slave. But God, you know, he said, I want you to go buy her. Hosea goes down, and sure enough, here she is. God loved his people, and they wouldn't love him back. 11:1, he went on and said, when Israel was a child, I loved him, and I called him out of Egypt. This is a part people have so much trouble about, it seems, because, see, we love our stuff so much. And God loves us so much, he said, will you leave your stuff aside and come and let me share with you my heart? Through our high school years, we had our hard times, but I loved her. And you know what? She fell in love with me. Ask her, Sister Kindrix, did you fall in love with me? Oh, did you see them eyes? That's good stuff right there. Them heads can nod, but them eyes tell the story. See, God says, I love someone that don't love me back. I don't know if any of you here tonight love somebody that didn't love you back. I told you my story, and my wife wouldn't be hard to get. She didn't want something that wasn't real. She had every right to test my affection for her. Matter of fact, God said, you have every right to test my affection for you. Prove me now, saith God, and see if I will not open up the windows of heaven and pour out on you a blessing that you won't have room to contain. God said, I'll prove my love to you. I wanted her to voluntarily do things that showed she really did care. God's after the same thing. Us to do things voluntarily that really says, I love you, Father. I didn't bring you here to pick on you. I brought you here to tell you an answer. Because Satan is after you. He's after you. He's after me. I buried my dad, my mom. Now I have children. But I want them to know their daddy loves them. I want them to know their mother loves them. Not everybody has that privilege and blessing. But here's what God said. If your parent drops you, you don't feel their love, you don't find their love coming back, God says, I'll pick you up and I'll love you. I'll be a wonderful parent to you. Ooh, I'm glad he'll do that, Sister Linda, because he's been a parent to me. How many loves the Lord?